The phone vibrates against my desk like an angry hornet, Marjorie's name flashing on the screen. Strange, my mother-in-law never calls during work hours. My finger hovers over the decline button, but something makes me answer. Genesis? Her voice trembles. Ryan took the children. My stomach drops through the floor. What do you mean took? He showed up at my house an hour ago. Said he needed Mason and Lily for a surprise trip. I thought you knew. The rest of her words blur into static. My hands shake as I pull up the school's number. No answer. 3 times, no answer. I have to go. I cut off Marjorie mid-sentence and grab my purse, already running for the elevator. My heels click against marble, each step echoing like a hammer strike. The security guard calls out something about a meeting, but I'm already pushing through the revolving doors into afternoon traffic. I dial Ryan's number. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. My fingers fumble with the keys as I unlock my car. Pick up, you bastard. Pick up. The drive home is a fever dream of red lights and horn blasts. I take corners too fast, run yellow lights too late. My mind spins through possibilities, each worse than the last. Our house sits empty, Ryan's car gone from the driveway. Inside, nothing seems disturbed except for the kids' rooms. Mason's favorite dinosaur backpack missing. Lily's purple unicorn lunchbox gone. Their drawers hang open, clothes grabbed in handfuls. My phone buzzes. A text from Ryan, they're safe. We needed space. The words hit like a physical blow. Space. Like we're discussing vacation plans or dinner options. Like he hasn't just kidnapped our children. I sink onto Mason's bed, clutching his pillow. It still smells like his strawberry shampoo. 7 years old. Just started 2nd grade. Loves science and hates carrots. My brilliant, sensitive boy. And Lily. My 5-year-old hurricane of giggles and questions. Who just lost her first tooth? Who makes up songs about everything she sees? Another text, you've been so focused on work. They need a present parent. The rage rises hot and fast. How dare he? After I supported his career changes, his finding himself phases. After I juggled client meetings and soccer practice and dance recitals. After I believed him when he said he understood that we were partners. I call Marjorie back. Tell me everything he said. Every detail. He seemed different. Calm, but not himself. Had a woman with him in the car. Young, blonde. The pieces clicked together like a toxic puzzle. The late nights at the office. The new cologne. The sudden interest in fitness. Jessica, I whisper. The bartender from his office party 3 months ago. The one he said was just being friendly. My fingers dig into the pillow until my knuckles turn white. Tears burn behind my eyes, but I blink them back. Crying won't help Mason and Lily. I open my laptop, hands steady now. Start documenting everything. Times, dates, screenshots of texts. My corporate training kicks in, gather evidence, build a case, plan your strategy. Ryan thinks he's punishing me. Thinks he's found my weakness. But he's forgotten something crucial. I didn't climb to senior sales executive by backing down from a fight. My phone buzzes again. A photo this time, Mason and Lily at some restaurant, forced smiles and worried eyes. Location services disabled, of course. But there's a sign reflected in the window behind them. I save the photo, start making calls. First the police, then my lawyer. Each number dialed with precise, controlled fury. Ryan wants to play games? Fine. But he's about to learn that he's not the only one who can be calculating. And unlike him, I'm fighting for something real. I touch the screen, tracing my children's faces. Hang on, babies, I whisper. Mommy's coming. And when I find him, when I find him, there won't be anywhere left to hide. The address from the reflected sign leads me to a rundown apartment complex on the edge of town. Paint peels from the walls like dead skin, and the stairwell reeks of stale cigarettes. Third floor, apartment 3C. I hear Lily's laugh through the door, that bright, bell-like sound that usually fills me with joy. Now it twists in my gut like a knife. I knock. Hard. 3 times. Jessica opens the door, wearing one of Ryan's old college t-shirts. Her blonde hair is perfectly tousled, like she's posing for an Instagram shot. "Oh," she says, smile too wide. "You must be Genesis." "Where are they?" "Mommy." Lily barrels into my legs. I scoop her up, breathing in her familiar strawberry shampoo scent. Mason appears behind her, hesitant. His eyes dart between me and something behind him. "Hey, buddy," I say softly. "You okay?" Before he can answer, Ryan steps into view. "I told you I'd bring them back tomorrow." "You told me nothing." My voice stays level, though my pulse pounds in my throat. "You kidnapped our children." "Kidnapped?" He laughs, but it's hollow. "I'm their father. We're having quality time." Quality time doesn't require sneaking them out of school and disabling location services. Jessica touches Ryan's arm. "Maybe the kids should watch TV while you two talk?" I tighten my hold on Lily. "They're coming home with me." "No." Ryan's face hardens. "You don't get to control everything anymore, Genesis. Your 60-hour work weeks, your constant business trips, the kids need stability." "Stability?" I want to laugh. Or scream. Or both. "Is that what you call shacking up with your bartender girlfriend?" "At least I'm present," he snaps. "When was the last time you made it to one of Mason's science fairs? Or Lily's dance classes?" "Last month," Mason pipes up. "Mom came to my robotics presentation. She brought cookies." Ryan falters for a moment. Jessica's perfect smile slips. "The police are already involved," I say quietly. "And my lawyer. So here's what's going to happen, the kids are coming home with me. Now. Or the next conversation we have will be in court." "You wouldn't." "Try me." Mason moves closer to me, pressing against my side. His small hand finds mine. "Fine." Ryan runs a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurts. "Take them." "But this isn't over." "You're right about that." I look at Jessica, still wearing my husband's shirt in her shabby apartment. "By the way, how's the insurance fraud case going? The one from your last bartending job?" Her face goes white. Ryan turns to her, confusion creasing his forehead. "Oh," I say. "Did she not mention that?" Funny how some people keep secrets. "Genesis," Ryan starts, but I'm already steering the kids toward the door. "Daddy's not coming?" Lily asks as we reach the stairs. "Not right now, sweetheart." I force my voice to stay steady. "But you'll see him soon." In the car, Mason stays quiet, but I catch him watching me in the rearview mirror. "Mom," he finally says. "Are you and Dad getting divorced?" The question hits like a physical blow. I meet his eyes in the mirror. "I don't know yet, buddy. But I promise, whatever happens, you and Lily are the most important thing to both of us." "More important than Jessica?" "Way more important." He nods, processing this with the serious expression he gets when solving math problems. My phone buzzes with a text from Ryan. "You had no right to bring up Jessica's past." I ignore it. Another buzz. "We need to talk about this like adults." Like adults. Like he didn't just try to steal our children. Like he hasn't been planning this for who knows how long. I glance at Mason and Lily in the back seat, both unusually quiet. They shouldn't have to deal with any of this. But they are, because their father decided his midlife crisis was more important than their stability. Fine. He wants to play dirty? I can play dirty. I've spent years documenting everything for work, every meeting, every deal, every promise made and broken. Time to put those skills to personal use. Ryan thinks he knows me? He has no idea what I'm capable of when my children are at stake. Sarah's wine glass trembles as she tells me what I should have known months ago. We sit in her backyard, the evening air thick with jasmine and betrayal. I thought you knew, she says, not meeting my eyes. The way he and Jessica were always talking at office parties. The lunch meetings that ran late. My fingers tighten around my own untouched glass. How long? Genesis. How long? She swallows hard. Since Christmas. Maybe before. They started looking at apartments in February. February. While I was planning Mason's science fair project. While I was taking Lily to dance classes. While Ryan was telling me he needed to work late, needed to network, needed to find himself. There's more, Sarah whispers. He's been moving money. Small amounts at first, then larger transfers. Jessica's brother works at the bank. He helped them set up a separate account. The wine glass shatters in my grip. Red spreads across my palm like blood, but I barely feel the sting. I should have told you sooner. Sarah reaches for napkins. But Ryan said you were so focused on work, that the marriage was already over. He made it sound like it was my fault? The laugh that escapes me sounds foreign, harsh. Of course he did. My phone buzzes. A text from Ryan, we need to discuss custody arrangements. Custody. Like he hasn't been systematically undermining me for months. Like he hasn't been building his case while dismantling our life. I have proof, Sarah says quietly. Emails. Bank statements. Pictures. Why now? The question comes out sharper than intended. Why tell me this now? She looks away again. Jessica came to the office today. She was bragging about how they're going to prove you're an unfit mother. How Ryan's lawyer thinks your work schedule alone will convince a judge. The room tilts sideways. I grab the table edge, steadying myself against the wave of nausea. I can't lose them, Sarah. You won't. She pulls out her phone, starts forwarding emails. Ryan's not as clever as he thinks. He used his work email for everything. Apartment searches, messages to Jessica, even conversations with her brother about the money. My own phone keeps buzzing. Ryan again, the kids miss Jessica. They need stability. Stability. The word echoes in my head like a mockery. I open my laptop, start documenting everything Sarah's telling me. Dates, times, amounts. The familiar rhythm of data collection centers me, turns the rage into something cold and precise. There's one more thing. Sarah hesitates. Jessica has a history. Not just the insurance fraud. She's done this before. 3 times. Married men, messy divorces, always walking away with settlements. And Ryan doesn't know? He thinks she's his soulmate. Sarah's laugh is bitter. Just like the others did. My phone rings, Marjorie this time. I answer on speaker. Genesis? Her voice shakes. Ryan's here. He's demanding Mason's passport. Says they're planning a trip to Mexico next month. Mexico. Where custody agreements don't matter. Where children disappear. Don't give it to him, I say, already grabbing my keys. I'm on my way. He's saying awful things. Marjorie's voice drops to a whisper. About you, about your parenting. This isn't my son anymore. I don't know who this is. Stay inside. Lock the doors. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I end the call, turn to Sarah. I need copies of everything. Now. She nods, fingers flying over her keyboard. I'll send it all. But Genesis? Be careful. When men like Ryan feel cornered. I'm not the one who should be worried about feeling cornered. I check my phone one last time before heading out. A new email from an unknown address, Jessica's brother, with bank statements attached. This should help, the message reads. Ryan's not the only one who can play both sides. I smile, and it feels like baring teeth. Ryan wanted a war? Fine. But he's about to learn that in the corporate world, I didn't earn my reputation by playing nice. I touch the cut on my palm, let the sting fuel me. Time to show him exactly what an unfit mother can do. Tom's office feels like a sanctuary after the chaos of the past few days. He slides a coffee across his desk, black, no sugar, just how I need it right now. You look like hell, he says quietly. Thanks. I take a sip, letting the bitter warmth steady me. Wait until you hear why. I lay out everything, the children, Jessica, the money trail, the Mexico threats. Tom listens without interrupting, his expression darkening with each revelation. He's going to file for full custody tomorrow, I finish. Sarah sent me a copy of the draft petition. It's ugly. Genesis. Tom leans forward, choosing his words carefully. What's your endgame here? What do you mean? I mean, are you trying to win, or are you trying to destroy him? The question hits harder than expected. I stare into my coffee, watching ripples form from my trembling hands. Because if it's about winning, he continues, we need to be strategic. But if it's about destruction? He slides a folder across the desk. You should see this. Inside are photos, Ryan and Jessica at various locations over the past year. Restaurants, hotels, the jewelry store where he bought my anniversary gift. How did you remember Marcus from IT? His wife works at your bank. She flagged some unusual transactions months ago. My throat tightens. You knew? I suspected. But it wasn't my place to tell me my husband was destroying my family? The words come out sharp enough to make him flinch. To interfere without proof. He taps the folder. Now we have proof. But Genesis, if you use this, all of it, there's no going back. Ryan won't just lose custody. He'll lose everything. Good. Including the children's father. That stops me cold. Mason's face flashes in my mind, his careful questions about when Daddy's coming home, his quiet withdrawal at bedtime. They need their father, Tom says gently. They need stability. Safety. I stand up, pacing. He was going to take them to Mexico, Tom. He's already proven he'll use them as weapons. Then beat him at his own game. But cleanly. He pulls out another document. The company's restructuring the West Coast division. They need a senior executive in Seattle. Seattle? The word feels foreign on my tongue. Fresh start. Better schools. Full corporate relocation package. He pauses. And jurisdiction away from Ryan's new lawyer friend. I stop pacing. How do you know about his lawyer? Because she just filed an emergency motion for temporary custody. Hearings tomorrow morning. The room spins slightly. I grip the back of my chair. He's claiming parental alienation, Tom continues. Says you're using your corporate connections to harass Jessica, interfere with his visitation rights. A laugh escapes me, hollow, desperate. He takes my children, empties our accounts, plans to flee the country, and I'm the alienator? The judge won't see the whole picture tomorrow. Just what Ryan's lawyer presents. Tom stands, moves closer. Take the Seattle position. Today. Once you're established there, with a stable home, good schools. He'll never agree to let me move them. He won't have a choice. Not after we show the judge these. He taps the folder again. But Genesis? You have to decide, revenge or protection. You can't have both. My phone buzzes, Lily's teacher, asking about pickup arrangements. Such a normal concern in this surreal nightmare. When would we leave? End of the month. Company handles everything: housing, schools, moving costs. I think of Mason's science project, half finished, on our dining room table. Lily's dance recital photos, still waiting to be framed. What about the hearing tomorrow? Let me handle it. Tom's voice softens. Trust me, Genesis. You're not alone in this. Another buzz. Ryan, this time, hope you're ready for tomorrow. Jessica picked out the perfect outfit for the kids' first day at their new school. My fingers tighten around the phone until my knuckles whiten. The Seattle offer sits between us like a lifeline or a surrender, depending on how I look at it. Okay, I whisper, then stronger, okay. Seattle. But first, we destroy him in court tomorrow. Tom nods, already reaching for his phone. I'll call Marcus. Time to show Ryan what real parental alienation looks like. The coffee's gone cold, but I don't need it anymore. Rage keeps me plenty warm. The courthouse bathroom mirror reflects a woman I barely recognize. Perfect makeup, pressed suit, hands that won't stop shaking. 10 minutes until the hearing. 9 minutes until I destroy my children's father. The door creaks. Jessica walks in, designer heels clicking against tile. Quite the performance you're planning, she says, checking her lipstick. All those documents, all those witnesses. Must have taken weeks to arrange. I meet her eyes in the mirror. Funny how karma works. You know what's funnier? She turns, leaning against the sink. Ryan's not the only one with secrets. Tom's been quite helpful, hasn't he? My blood freezes. What are you talking about? Those photos he gave you? The bank records? Her smile turns predatory. Did you ever wonder why he had them? The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Tom's convenient timing. His ready-made escape plan to Seattle. He's been watching Ryan for months, Jessica continues. Waiting for the perfect moment to swoop in. Knight in shining armor, for the desperate single mom. My phone buzzes, Tom, wondering where I am. I silence it. Why are you telling me this? Because I have a better offer. She pulls out an envelope. Ryan's planning to use these in court. Letters you wrote, back when you were working late. Begging him to be patient, promising to be a better wife, a better mother. The words hit like physical blows. I'd forgotten those letters, desperate attempts to save a marriage that was already dead. But they don't have to see the light of day, Jessica says softly. Drop the custody case. Take the Seattle job. Ryan will agree to joint custody, no questions asked. And what do you get out of this? Ryan. She shrugs. He's not as worthless as you think. His family money alone. You knew about that too? The trust fund Ryan's grandfather left him. The one that matures next month. Honey, I know everything. Including what Tom's really offering in Seattle. She taps the envelope against her palm. Question is, do your kids need to know how their mommy really feels about them? The letters. God, the letters. Written during deadlines and deals, full of guilt and promises I couldn't keep. In the wrong context. My phone buzzes again. The hearing starts in 5 minutes. Tick-tock, Jessica whispers. I think of Mason's face this morning, asking if he had to talk to the judge. Lily's tears when I dropped them at Marjorie's. If I agree. Already drafted. She pulls out another document. Joint custody. You get Seattle, we keep the house. Everyone wins. Except Tom. Men like Tom? Her laugh is bitter. They're all the same. Using other people's pain to play hero. The bathroom door opens. Sarah rushes in, stops short at the sight of us. Genesis? They're ready, she sees the papers in Jessica's hand. What's going on? I look at my reflection again. The perfect mask I'd constructed, ready for war. Ready to sacrifice my children's stability for revenge. Tell Tom I'm not coming, I say quietly. Sarah's eyes widen. But the evidence was never about justice. I take Jessica's agreement, scan the terms. It was about ego. Mine and everyone else's. Smart girl. Jessica's smile doesn't reach her eyes. I'll tell Ryan you're being reasonable. She leaves, victory in every step. Sarah grabs my arm. You can't trust them. After everything they've done. I trust them to be exactly who they are. I sign the agreement, hands steady now. Selfish, manipulative, predictable. Just like Tom. Genesis. Call the movers. We leave for Seattle next week. I straighten my jacket, wipe away a smudge of lipstick. But first, I need to make some calls. To who? I think of Ryan's grandfather, who always liked me better than his grandson. Of Jessica's past victims, whose contact information is safely encrypted on my home computer. Of Tom's wife, who doesn't know about his pattern with vulnerable colleagues. Everyone, I say softly. I need to call everyone. Because Jessica's right, revenge isn't worth my children's peace. But she forgot something crucial. The best revenge doesn't look like revenge at all. It looks like patience. 3 days before our move to Seattle, Ryan's grandfather dies. The timing isn't coincidental, nothing in this game ever is. I watch from the back of the funeral home as Jessica clutches Ryan's arm, playing the grieving support system perfectly. Mason sits between us in the front row, his small hand wrapped around my fingers. Lily's with Marjorie, too young to sit through the service. Too young to understand why Mommy and Daddy can't sit together anymore. He changed the will last week, Sarah whispers beside me. Everything goes to a trust for the grandchildren. Ryan can't touch it until Mason turns 18. I keep my face carefully blank, but satisfaction burns in my chest. One phone call to Grandfather Thompson about Ryan's plans for Mexico was all it took. The old man always did hate disloyalty. Ryan turns, catches my eye. His face twists with sudden understanding. The reception afterwards is a masterclass in subtle warfare. Jessica works the room, spreading sympathetic whispers about my absence during the final days. What she doesn't know is that every person she speaks to has already received proof of her previous marriages, her financial schemes, her outstanding warrants in 2 states. You did this. Ryan corners me by the refreshments. You turned him against me. You did that yourself. I sip my water. The moment you planned to take his great-grandchildren to Mexico. It wasn't like that. Save it for your next girlfriend. I'm sure Jessica will be gone once she realizes there's no trust fund coming. His face pales. What did you do? Nothing. Just made sure the truth came out. Like Tom's history of pursuing vulnerable colleagues. Like Jessica's pattern with wealthy divorcees. I set down my glass. Truth has a way of spreading. Mom? Mason appears between us. Can we go home? My stomach hurts. Ryan reaches for him, but Mason steps back, pressing against my leg. The rejection hits Ryan like a physical blow. Sure, buddy. I smooth Mason's hair. Say goodbye to your father. Bye, Mason whispers, not meeting Ryan's eyes. We're halfway to the door when Jessica intercepts us, her designer dress a shade too tight, too young for a funeral. You think you've won? She hisses. We still have those letters. One call to child services. About that. I pull out my phone, show her the screen. Remember Ryan's lawyer friend? Turns out she's more interested in keeping her license than helping you blackmail me. You're bluffing. Check your apartment. The letters are gone. Along with everything else you thought you could use against me. I lean closer. Next time you try to con a single father, make sure his mother-in-law doesn't have a spare key. Her face contorts. She grabs my arm, nails digging in. You bitch. Mom? Mason's voice trembles. What's happening? Jessica releases me instantly, but the damage is done. Mason's eyes are wide, frightened. He saw everything, the anger, the ugliness, the adults in his life tearing each other apart. Nothing, baby. I try to sound calm. We're leaving. In the car, Mason stays silent. My victory turns to ashes in my mouth. I'm sorry, I whisper. You shouldn't have seen that. Is that why we're moving? Because everyone's mad at each other? We're moving for a fresh start. The words sound hollow even to me. But Dad says it's because you hate him now. And Jessica says it's because you're selfish. And Grandma Marjorie keeps crying. Each word hits like a knife. I pull over, unable to drive through the tears threatening to fall. I don't hate your father, I manage. I hate what he did. What we all did. Then why can't we fix it? Because some things break beyond repair. Because revenge poisons everything it touches. Because in trying to protect them, I've shown my children exactly how ugly adults can be. My phone buzzes, the moving company, confirming tomorrow's schedule. Seattle looms ahead like an escape route or a surrender, I'm no longer sure which. Mom? Mason's voice is small. I don't want to move. Neither do I realize. But I burned too many bridges to stay. Set too many fires to claim the high ground. We sit in silence, watching the sun set over the city we're about to leave. I've won every battle, and somehow lost the war. The moving truck idles in our driveway as Ryan's car screeches to a halt. He stumbles out, disheveled, clutching papers. Jessica's nowhere in sight, not since the police picked her up yesterday on those outstanding warrants. You can't take them. He waves the custody agreement. We had a deal. The deal was joint custody. I continue loading boxes. Nothing says it has to be in this state. Genesis. His voice cracks. Please. Mason watches from his bedroom window upstairs. I catch his reflection in the truck's mirror, small face pressed against glass, watching his parents' world implode. Where's Jessica? I ask, though I already know. Gone. Took everything. He laughs, hollow. Even my grandfather's watches. The ones for Mason. Karma's funny that way. Is that what this is? Karma? He steps closer. You destroyed everything. My inheritance, my reputation, You destroyed it. The words explode out. The moment you decided our children were weapons to hurt me with. I never. Mexico, Ryan? A new school without telling me? Taking them from Marjorie's without permission? Each accusation lands like a physical blow. You were going to erase me from their lives. I was trying to save them. He grabs my arm. From becoming cold and calculating like you. From learning that success matters more than family. Let go. Or what? You'll destroy what's left of me. His grip tightens. There's nothing left to take. Dad? Mason's voice cuts through the tension. He stands in the doorway, trembling. You're hurting Mom. Ryan releases me instantly. Steps back like he's been burned. Mason, go inside, I say quietly. No. Ryan moves toward him. Buddy, you don't understand. Your mom tried to protect us. Mason's voice is small but steady. While you lied. The words hit Ryan like bullets. He staggers slightly. Who told you? I heard you. With Jessica. About taking us away so Mom couldn't find us. Mason's eyes fill with tears. You were going to make us leave everyone. School, Grandma, everything. I was trying to give you a better life. By stealing us? Ryan flinches. Reaches for our son. Mason backs away. I hate you, he whispers, then runs inside. The silence that follows is deafening. Ryan stares at the space where Mason stood, something breaking in his expression. Happy now? He asks finally. You've turned them against me. No, Ryan. You did that yourself. I pick up another box. Just like you turned yourself against me. Against our family. What family? He gestures at the half-empty house. You're taking them across the country. To protect them from becoming collateral damage in your midlife crisis. And what about your revenge crisis? His laugh is bitter. You're not innocent here, Genesis. No, I agree quietly. I'm not. But I learned from it. You're still playing the victim. Lily appears in the doorway, clutching her unicorn. Daddy? Are you coming with us? The question hangs between us like a loaded gun. Ryan looks at me, pleading silently. No, sweetheart. I answer before he can make promises he won't keep. Daddy's staying here. But you'll see him on holidays. And weekends, Ryan adds quickly. I'll fly out. Every month. We both know he won't. The trust fund's gone, his job's hanging by a thread, and Jessica cleaned out their joint accounts before disappearing. Promise? Lily asks. Ryan opens his mouth, closes it. For once, he doesn't lie. The moving truck's horn honks, a reminder that time's running out. Just like our marriage did, one broken promise at a time. We need to go, I say softly. Ryan nods, defeated. Watches as I lead Lily inside to get her brother. Genesis, he calls after me. I did love you. Once. I turn back, see the man I married somewhere in the stranger he's become. I know, I reply. That's what made it hurt so much. The door closes between us with a final click. Inside, our children wait to leave the only home they've known. Outside, their father stands in the wreckage of the life he gambled away. Sometimes, I realize, revenge isn't about winning. It's about surviving what's left when the battle's done. The Seattle rain drums against my office window as I review the latest email from Ryan's lawyer. Another missed child support payment, another excuse. Below it, a message from Marjorie about Ryan's latest job loss. His fourth since we left. Mason's artwork decorates my walls, bright splashes of color against Seattle's gray. His latest piece shows our old house, but with wings attached, flying away. His therapist says it's progress. My phone buzzes, Tom, asking about dinner plans. I delete the message without responding. Some bridges stay burned. Mom? Lily peeks around my door, her unicorn trailing behind her. Can we get ice cream after school tomorrow? Dad promised to video call during. The familiar ache returns. Did he promise, or did he say he'd try? Her silence answers for her. The doorbell rings, unexpected at this hour. Mason calls out that he'll get it, followed by the sound of running feet. Mason, wait, but I'm already hearing the door open, followed by a familiar voice. Hey, buddy. Ryan. I find them in the doorway, Ryan looking smaller somehow, wearing a cheap suit and desperate smile. Mason stands frozen, one hand still on the doorknob. What are you doing here? My voice stays steady, professional. The voice I use for difficult clients. I had a job interview. He shifts, uncomfortable in his borrowed confidence. Thought maybe we could talk? Daddy. Lily launches herself at him. He catches her, but the impact makes him stagger slightly. He's lost weight. You should have called first. Would you have answered? Mason moves closer to me, watching his father with wary eyes. You missed my science fair. I know, buddy. The flight was. And my birthday. Mason. And Christmas. His voice cracks. You promised. Ryan's face crumples. I'm trying. Everything's been hard. I finish for him. Like being a single parent? Like explaining to your children why their father keeps breaking promises? Genesis, please. He sets Lily down. I know I messed up with everything, but I'm getting help. Therapy, AA meetings. This pulls me up short. 3 months sober. He manages a weak smile. Turns out I had more problems than just Jessica. Mason tugs my sleeve. Can Dad stay for dinner? The question hangs between us like a live wire. Ryan doesn't push, doesn't plead. Just waits, looking more like the man I married than he has in years. 30 minutes, I say finally. That's all. Over microwave dinners, we navigate the new territory of our broken family. Ryan shows Mason pictures of his new apartment, small, basic, but with a room ready for weekend visits. If they ever happen. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he says later, as the kids clear their plates. Just a chance to do better. Why now? Because I finally understand what I lost. He looks at our children, really looks at them. Not just the money or the status. But this. Them. The chance to watch them grow up. They're not prizes to be won back, Ryan. I know. He stands, preparing to leave. That's what therapy's teaching me. Among other things. At the door, Mason hesitates, then hugs him quickly. Lily clings longer, making him promise to call tomorrow. We all pretend not to notice how his voice catches when he agrees. After they're in bed, I find Ryan's wallet on the counter. Inside, along with AA chips and food stamps, is a crumpled photo of the 4 of us from before. Before Jessica, before the betrayals, before revenge consumed us all. I text him about the wallet. His response comes quickly, keep it. A reminder of what I'm working towards. I should throw it away. Should maintain the walls I built. Instead, I place it in my desk drawer, not hidden, not displayed, just waiting. Because maybe redemption, like revenge, comes in small steps. In missed calls that eventually connect. In broken promises slowly mending. In children learning that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but choosing to move forward anyway. The rain continues outside, washing away another day in our new normal. Not perfect, not ruined, just healing. My name is Monica, and my story begins in a bustling household where love was abundant, if not always equally distributed. Growing up, our home was a cacophony of laughter, cries, and the constant patter of little feet. I was the second oldest, sandwiched between my brother Jake, who was just a year my senior, and my 2 younger sisters, Emma and Lily, who came into our lives when I was already in my early teens. From an early age, I learned the art of responsibility. While other kids my age were out playing, I was often found in our modest kitchen, helping Mom prepare dinner or in the living room, cradling a fussy Emma or Lily. It wasn't always easy, but it taught me invaluable lessons about compassion and hard work. Our parents, John and Sarah, were hard-working individuals who dreamed of giving us a better life than they had. Dad worked long hours at the local factory, while Mom juggled part-time jobs and household duties. They weren't rich by any means, but they managed to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. However, there was an undercurrent in our family dynamics that I couldn't ignore. Jake, my older brother, seemed to hold a special place in our parents' hearts. Jake's the oldest, Dad would say, ruffling his hair affectionately. He's carrying on the family name. That comes with responsibilities and perks. As we grew older, the disparity became more apparent. When it came time for high school graduation, Jake got a car. I got a heartfelt card and a promise that they'd help with college expenses. It wasn't that I was unloved, far from it. But the preference was clear, and it shaped our family dynamics in subtle ways. My sisters, Emma and Lily, looked up to me with adoring eyes. Being significantly younger, they often saw me as a second mother figure. I took this role seriously, determined to be the kind of role model they deserved. As high school drew to a close, I set my sights on college. My parents, true to their word, had set aside money for our education. It wasn't enough to cover everything, but it was a start. I chose to study finance, a practical field that I hoped would lead to a stable career. My chosen field of study, finance, proved to be as demanding as I'd anticipated. Long nights in the library became my new normal, but I tackled each assignment with the same determination I'd applied to helping Mom with household chores. Despite the workload, I made sure to call home regularly. Mom would fill me in on the family gossip, Dad would grunt his hellos, and my sisters would fight over the phone to tell me about their days. Jake's updates were less frequent, usually relayed through Mom. He'd started working at a local company, showing little interest in further education. Our parents, especially Dad, seemed pleased with his progress. "Your brother's really finding his feet in the business world," Dad would say during our infrequent conversations. "He's got a knack for it." I'd murmur my agreement, pushing down the small spark of competitiveness that flared up. This wasn't a race, I reminded myself. We each had our own paths to follow. As the years passed, I threw myself into my studies and part-time jobs, determined to make the most of the opportunity my parents had given me. Their financial support, while not covering everything, was a lifeline I was deeply grateful for. I knew the sacrifices they were making to keep me in school, and I was determined not to let them down. Graduation day arrived before I knew it. As I stood in my cap and gown, diploma in hand, I scanned the crowd for my family. There they were, Mom and Dad beaming with pride, Emma and Lily waving enthusiastically, and even Jake had made it, standing a bit apart with a half-smile on his face. After the ceremony, Mom hugged me tight. "We're so proud of you, honey," she said, her eyes glistening. Dad nodded, patting my shoulder awkwardly but affectionately. "You've done well, Monica. Now it's time to make your mark in the world." As we celebrated over dinner, I shared my plans to stay in the city and start my career. A part of me had considered returning home, but the opportunities here were too good to pass up. My entry-level position at a financial firm demanded long hours. Visits home became less frequent, limited to major holidays and the occasional long weekend. But I never forgot my roots, calling regularly and sending care packages to my sisters. It was during one of my rare visits home, nearly a decade after I'd first left for college, that everything changed. I was sitting in the kitchen with Mom, catching up over coffee, when my phone rang. It was my boss. "Monica, I have some news," he said, his voice unusually serious. "We're opening a new branch in your hometown, and I want you to head it up. It's a big promotion, but it would mean relocating. Are you interested?" "Yes," I heard myself say. "I'm definitely interested." When I got the job offer back in my hometown, my company said they'd pay for an apartment. But Mom and Dad insisted I move back home. "Come on, Monica," Mom pleaded, "it'll be just like old times." I couldn't say no. On my first day back, I walked into our old house. It looked smaller than I remembered. Emma and Lily, now in their late teens, ran to hug me. Jake lived separately and was already engaged. Later that night, after unpacking, I sat with Emma and Lily in our old room. It felt good to be back, listening to their stories and laughing together. "So, tell me about Jake's fiancée," I said. Emma and Lily shared a look. "Her name's Vanessa," Emma said slowly. "She's different." Lily nodded. "Yeah, she's from a rich family. Her dad owns the company Jake works for now." Something in their tone made me curious. "Different how?" They didn't say much more, just shrugged and changed the subject. I decided to drop it for now. The next few weeks were busy. I started my new job, setting up the branch office. It was hard work, but I loved it. In the evenings, I'd help Emma and Lily with homework or chat with Mom while she cooked dinner. One Sunday, we were all sitting around the table when the doorbell rang. Mom jumped up to answer it. "It's Jake and Vanessa," she called out. I stood up, eager to see my brother and meet his fiancée. Jake walked in first, looking sharp in a suit. Behind him was a tall, slim woman with perfect hair and clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Vanessa looked around our house like it was beneath her. "Oh, how quaint," she said, picking up one of Mom's knickknacks. I watched, confused, as Mom and Dad fussed over her. They kept asking if she needed anything, apologizing for the smallest things. Emma and Lily were quiet, eyes down. When Vanessa made a nasty comment about Lily's clothes, I'd had enough. I pulled Emma aside. "What's going on?" I whispered. "Why is everyone letting her act like this?" Emma sighed. "Jake works for her dad now. It's a big deal. Mom and Dad are scared if we upset her, Jake might lose his job." I was shocked. This wasn't the family I knew. We'd never let anyone treat us like this before. Things got worse at dinner. Vanessa started on me, making snide remarks about my job and clothes. I saw red. "Look," I snapped, "I don't know who you think you are, but in this house, we treat each other with respect. If you can't do that, maybe you should leave." The room went silent. Vanessa's face turned ugly. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and stormed out. Jake followed, looking torn. As soon as they left, Mom and Dad rounded on me. "Monica, how could you?" Mom cried. "You know how important this is for Jake." Dad looked disappointed. "You need to control your temper. This could ruin everything for your brother." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They kept at it, begging me to apologize, to be the bigger person. Finally, just to shut them up, I agreed to try and make peace with Vanessa. The weeks flew by, and suddenly Jake's wedding was all anyone could talk about. Vanessa took charge, bossing everyone around like she was running a military operation instead of planning a party. She dragged us to endless dress fittings, insisting we buy expensive gowns that matched the venue's aesthetic. When I suggested something more affordable, Vanessa just laughed. "Oh, Monica," she sneered, "we can't have you looking cheap at my wedding, can we?" The bachelorette party was next on her list. Vanessa handed out a minute-by-minute schedule, complete with mandatory activities and outfit changes. It was ridiculous, but Mom kept giving me these pleading looks, so I bit my tongue. Then came the bombshell. Vanessa wanted us to dance at the wedding. Not just a simple waltz, mind you. No, she was planning a full-on performance. "It'll be the highlight of the reception," she gushed. "You'll all look so cute." My stomach dropped. I'd hurt my back years ago in a car accident. Dancing wasn't really my thing anymore. But I figured, how bad could it be? Turns out, pretty bad. I showed up at the dance studio, and the choreographer started talking about splits and lifts and all sorts of crazy moves. Vanessa was there, barking orders like a drill sergeant. "Come on, ladies, put your backs into it." I pulled out my phone, thinking I'd record it to practice later. But as I watched, I realized there was no way I could do this. It was way too much. "Hold on," I said, "this is insane. We're not circus performers, Vanessa. I can't do these moves." Vanessa's face turned ugly. "What do you mean, you can't? Of course you can. Stop being difficult, Monica." I stood my ground. "No, I mean it. I have an old back injury. This kind of dancing isn't possible for me." That's when Vanessa really lost it. She started yelling, throwing around words I won't repeat. Then she hit me with this gem. "Fine. If you won't dance, you owe Jake $3,500 as a wedding gift. It's only fair, since you're ruining my special day." I was speechless. I looked at Emma and Lily, hoping they'd back me up. But they just stared at the floor, Mom's warnings clearly ringing in their ears. That was it. I'd had enough. "You know what, Vanessa? Keep your damn dance. I'm out of here." I stormed out of the studio, my hands shaking as I clutched my phone. The video of that disastrous rehearsal was still recording. As I walked home, my mind raced. What was I going to do now? How had things gotten this messed up? I burst through the front door, still fuming from the dance rehearsal fiasco. Mom and Dad were in the living room, and they could tell something was wrong. I spilled everything: the impossible dance routine, Vanessa's outrageous behavior, the $3,500 ultimatum. I expected sympathy, maybe even anger on my behalf. What I got was something else entirely. Dad's face turned red. "Monica, how could you? After everything we've talked about. This wedding is so important for Jake's future. You need to apologize to Vanessa right now and agree to do the dance." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Apologize? For what? Having a spine injury? Standing up for myself? "Stop being so selfish," Dad shouted. "This isn't about you. It's about Jake's happiness and success." "So my happiness doesn't matter?" I shot back. "My health?" The argument escalated quickly. Voices raised, tears were shed. I stood my ground, refusing to cave to Vanessa's ridiculous demands. That's when Dad dropped the bomb. "If you can't support your brother and his fiancée, then maybe you shouldn't be here at all." The room went silent. I packed a bag that night, ignoring Mom's half-hearted attempts to smooth things over. The next day, I moved into the apartment my company had originally offered. It was small and empty, but at least it was mine. The wedding came and went. I didn't attend, couldn't bear the thought of watching my family kowtow to Vanessa's every whim. I spent that day alone in my apartment, alternating between anger and sadness. A few days later, my phone exploded with notifications. Vanessa had made a post on social media, a long, dramatic tale about how I had tried to ruin her perfect day. She painted herself as the victim, me as the jealous, spiteful sister-in-law. The comments were worse. Relatives I hadn't seen in years were suddenly experts on my character, condemning me for my selfish and cruel behavior. Even Emma and Lily liked the post, a betrayal that cut deep. The call started soon after. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all wanting to tell me how disappointed they were, how I should be ashamed of myself. Emma tried to reach out once, sent a text saying she missed me. But when I suggested meeting up, she backpedaled, said Vanessa wouldn't like it. I didn't try again after that. I threw myself into my work, hoping to finish the project quickly and leave this town behind. But things kept getting delayed, problems cropping up that required my personal attention. Each extension felt like a twist of the knife. Months passed, and I settled into a lonely routine. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I'd almost gotten used to the silence when my phone rang one night. It was Lily. "Monica?" Her voice was small, trembling. "Can we talk?" We met at a cafe across town, away from prying eyes. Lily looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hair a mess. She burst into tears the moment she saw me. "I'm so sorry, Monica," she sobbed. "You were right about everything." Slowly, the whole story came out. After the wedding, Vanessa had shown her true colors. She'd been ordering Emma and Lily around like servants, making them clean her house, cook meals, do laundry, all without pay. "She says it's our duty as family," Lily said bitterly. "And Jake, he just goes along with it. He sees how she treats us and does nothing." My blood boiled. What about Mom and Dad? Surely they don't approve. Lily's laugh was hollow. "They think it's great. Say we're building character and cementing family bonds. It's like they're brainwashed or something." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was worse than I'd imagined. "I'm so sorry I didn't stand up for you before," Lily whispered. I was scared. We all were. But now, I can't take it anymore. "Please, Monica, help us." The next day, I marched over to our parents' house. Mom answered the door, her smile fading when she saw me. "Monica, what are you doing here?" I pushed past her into the living room. Dad was there, looking up from his newspaper with a frown. "We need to talk," I said. "About Vanessa. About how she's treating Emma and Lily." Mom's face hardened. "I don't know what Lily's been telling you, but..." "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't try to deny it. I know everything. How can you let this happen? They're your daughters." Dad stood up, his voice cold. Now you listen here, Monica. Vanessa is family now. She's given Jake opportunities we could only dream of. If the girls need to pitch in a little, that's a small price to pay. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A little? She's treating them like slaves. And you're okay with this? You're exaggerating, Mom said weakly. The girls are fine. They're just what, Mom? Just being abused by their sister-in-law while their parents look the other way? Dad's face turned red. That's enough. I won't have you coming in here, stirring up trouble. Vanessa is Jake's wife. She's wealthy, connected. She can give this family a future. If you can't accept that, then maybe you're not really part of this family anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at them, these strangers wearing my parents' faces. So that's it? I said quietly. You're choosing money over your own children? Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad just glared. Get out, he said. And don't come back until you're ready to apologize to Vanessa and Jake. I left, my legs shaky, my heart breaking all over again. As I walked away from my childhood home, I realized a hard truth: I couldn't change their minds. They were too far gone, too seduced by the promise of wealth and status. But I couldn't abandon Emma and Lily. Somehow, some way, I had to find a way to help them. To save them from Vanessa, from our parents' willful blindness, and from the fate they seemed determined to accept. That day started like any other. I was preparing for a big meeting, reviewing notes, and straightening my jacket. Then I saw the name on the guest list: Robert Thompson, CEO of Thompson Industries. Vanessa's father. My heart raced. He wouldn't know me, I'd missed the wedding, after all. But I knew him, the man whose money had torn my family apart. The meeting began, all handshakes and forced smiles. Robert didn't give me a second glance. We discussed business, crunched numbers, argued points. Then came the coffee break. I found myself next to Robert, both of us refilling our cups. He started chatting, casual small talk that somehow turned to parenting. You know, he said, puffing up with pride, I raised my Vanessa to be humble. Never let her flaunt our wealth. She grew up modest, well-mannered. Even married a regular guy. She respects everyone, treats them like family. Something in me snapped. Without a word, I pulled out my phone and hit play on a video I'd almost forgotten about. There was Vanessa, red-faced and screaming at the dance rehearsal. You stupid scum, she shrieked on screen. Pay $3,500 or get out. I won't have you ruining my wedding. The color drained from Robert's face. He watched, horrified, as his daughter berated me, my sisters, the other bridesmaids. When it ended, silence fell. I had no idea, Robert whispered. She's always so polite around me. I thought. I believed. I steeled myself for anger, for him to storm out. Instead, he looked at me, eyes pleading. Please, he said. Tell me everything. So I did. The cruel comments, the forced labor, the way she'd turned my family against me. With each word, Robert seemed to age years. I'm so sorry, he said when I finished. I've failed as a father. Please, let me try to make this right. Before I could respond, he was on his feet. Come with me, he said. Now. We drove to Jake and Vanessa's house in silence. Robert's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The scene inside was worse than I'd imagined. Emma was there, wearing a maid's uniform, scrubbing floors. Vanessa lounged on the couch, barking orders. Robert exploded. Vanessa, what is the meaning of this? How dare you treat people like this? Your own family. Vanessa's shock turned to anger. She pointed at Emma. I won't apologize to servants. Robert's face turned purple. That's it. You're cut off. No more money, no more house. I'm ashamed to call you my daughter. Jake tried to intervene. Sir, please. The girls don't mind helping out. It's no big deal. Robert rounded on him. And you? Letting your wife abuse your sisters? You're fired. Both of you, out of my sight. He turned to me and Emma, his voice softening. I'm so sorry. For everything. Please, let me help make this right. As we left, Vanessa's shrieks fading behind us, I felt a mix of emotions, relief, vindication, but also sadness. This was a Pyrrhic victory at best. The fallout from Robert's intervention was swift and merciless. Instead of seeing reason, my parents doubled down on their support for Jake and Vanessa. They were furious with me, blaming me for ruining Jake's cushy life. How could you do this to your own brother? Mom wailed over the phone. He had everything, and now it's all gone because of you. Dad was even worse. You've always been jealous of Jake, he spat. Well, congratulations. You've destroyed this family. Don't bother coming around anymore. You're not welcome here. Their words hurt, but I wasn't surprised. They'd made their choice long ago, and it wasn't me or my sisters they'd chosen. I threw myself into work, finishing up the project that had kept me in my hometown for so long. The day it was complete, I packed up my apartment and left without looking back. I found a new position in another city, desperate for a fresh start. Months passed. I built a new life, made new friends, tried to forget the family that had rejected me. But I couldn't stop worrying about Emma and Lily. I'd send texts, but the responses were always short, evasive. Then, one rainy night, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Emma and Lily, soaked to the bone, suitcases in hand. Monica, Emma said, her voice breaking. We need your help. Over cups of hot tea, they told me everything. Jake and Vanessa, broke and jobless, had moved back in with our parents. But instead of humbling them, it had made Vanessa even more tyrannical. She treats the house like her personal kingdom, Lily explained. And us? We're just her servants. Mom and Dad don't do anything, Emma added. They're so afraid of Jake leaving that they let Vanessa do whatever she wants. My heart broke for them. Why didn't you tell me sooner? They exchanged guilty looks. We were ashamed, Lily admitted. And scared. Vanessa threatened to make things even worse if we reached out to you. But we couldn't take it anymore, Emma said. Please, Monica. Can we stay with you? Just until we find jobs and our own place? I didn't hesitate. Of course you can. Stay as long as you need. It wasn't easy at first. My apartment was small, and we were all adjusting to living together as adults. But slowly, we found our rhythm. I helped them polish their resumes, practiced interview techniques with them. We stayed up late, talking through years of pain and misunderstandings. Weeks turned into months. Emma found a job at a local bookstore, while Lily started taking classes at a nearby community college. They insisted on contributing to rent and groceries, even though I told them it wasn't necessary. One night, as we sat around the dinner table, laughing over some silly story, I realized something. Our parents might never come around. Jake and Vanessa might never change. But that was okay. We had each other, and that was enough. As I looked at my sisters, strong, resilient, finally free to be themselves, I knew we'd be all right. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. As a real family should. My name's Pamela, and up until recently, I was just your average workaholic advertising specialist. I lived and breathed my job at this fancy agency in the heart of the city. You know the type, big glass building, top floor office with a view that'd make your head spin. I was good at what I did, damn good actually. The agency relied on me for pretty much everything. I was your typical career-focused woman in her early 30s. No husband, no kids, just me and my work. My tiny apartment was more like a pit stop between office hours than an actual home. I'd roll in late at night, crash for a few hours, then head right back out. Rinse and repeat. My boss, well, she was something else. Picture a 60-something woman with more ambition than empathy. She owned the agency, and boy, did she let everyone know it. Her name was Vivian, but we all called her Mrs. Crawford, behind her back. To her face? It was all yes, ma'am, and right away, ma'am. One particular Monday morning, I dragged myself into the office, feeling like death warmed over. I'd caught some nasty bug over the weekend, but deadlines wait for no one, especially not in Vivian's world. I was hunched over my computer, trying to focus on the quarterly report through my fever haze, when Vivian's voice cut through the office like a knife. "Pamela, my office, now." I stumbled to her door, knowing full well what was coming. The report was late, and Vivian Crawford did not do late. "What the hell is this?" she snarled, waving a printout in my face. "You call this a report? Any 5-year-old could put together something more coherent than this garbage." "I'm sorry, Ms. Crawford," I mumbled, my head pounding. "I've been sick, Anne." "Sick?" she scoffed. "You think clients care if you're sick? You think I built this agency by taking sick days? You're useless, Pamela. Utterly useless." Her words hit me like a slap. I'd poured my heart and soul into this job for years, sacrificed everything for it. And this was what I got in return? I don't know if it was the fever or just years of pent-up frustration, but something in me snapped. Tears welled up in my eyes, and before I knew it, I was bolting out of her office, past the shocked faces of my coworkers, and into the elevator. The elevator dinged, and as the doors slid open, I came face to face with a pair of concerned brown eyes. "Hey, are you okay?" a deep voice asked. I looked up, startled by the voice. Standing there was a man about my age, with kind eyes and a concerned expression. I must have looked a sight, because his brow furrowed even deeper when he saw my face. "I'm fine," I stammered, trying to regain my composure. But the tears betrayed me, streaming down my cheeks. "You don't look fine," he said gently. "Look, I know it's none of my business, but would you like to grab a coffee? Sometimes talking to a stranger can help." I hesitated. I never did things like this, running out of work, crying in elevators, accepting invitations from strangers. But something about his genuine concern broke through my defenses. "Actually," I sniffled, "that sounds nice." We made our way to a little cafe just down the street. As we sat down with our coffees, he introduced himself as Jake. "So," he said, settling into his chair, "want to tell me what's got you so upset?" I found myself pouring out the whole story, how I'd been feeling ill, how I was behind on my work, and how my boss had torn into me. I was careful not to mention any names or specifics about the company, but I didn't hold back on describing how devastated I felt. "Wow," Jake said when I finished. "That's rough. No one deserves to be treated like that, especially when they're sick." We ended up talking for over an hour. Jake told me about his own job in finance, his hobbies, his dog. It was easy, comfortable conversation, and I found myself laughing, despite the awful morning I'd had. As we were getting ready to leave, Jake hesitated. "Listen, Pamela. I know we just met, but I'd really like to see you again. Maybe we could grab dinner sometime?" I surprised myself by saying yes without hesitation. We exchanged numbers, and as I watched him walk away, I felt a flutter of excitement in my chest. Over the next few weeks, Jake and I started seeing each other regularly. We'd meet for dinner after work, or spend weekends exploring the city. With each date, I found myself falling harder for him. He was kind, funny, and supportive, everything I'd been missing in my life. At work, things were, well, they were what they always were. Vivian was still Vivian, demanding and critical. But somehow, it didn't bother me as much anymore. Knowing I had Jake to talk to at the end of the day made it all more bearable. One night, about a year after we'd met, Jake took me to a fancy restaurant. As we finished our dessert, he pulled out a small velvet box and opened it, revealing a beautiful diamond ring. "Pamela, will you marry me?" Happy tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded enthusiastically. Yes, yes, of course I'll marry you. As Jake slipped the ring on my finger, I felt like I was floating on air. Everything was perfect. Jake was perfect. Our life together would be perfect. The weeks following our engagement were a whirlwind of happiness. One evening, as we cuddled on the couch in my apartment, Jake brought up something I hadn't even considered. "Babe," he said, running his fingers through my hair, "I think it's time you met my mom. She's been asking to meet you. How about this weekend? We can drive out to her place." That Saturday, we pulled up to a house that made my jaw drop. It was huge, easily 3 times the size of the house I grew up in. The door swung open, and I froze. Standing there, looking just as shocked as I felt, was Vivian Crawford, my boss, Jake's mother. "Mom," Jake said warmly, oblivious to the tension, "this is Pamela, my fiancée." Vivian's eyes narrowed as they swept over me. "Pamela," she said, her voice cold. "What a surprise." "Jake, darling, surely you can do better than this." She waved her hand dismissively in my direction. "With your money, your position, you could have any woman you want. Why settle for someone from such a modest background?" I felt like I'd been slapped. Jake's arm tightened around me. "Mom," he said, his voice hard, "I love Pamela. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm marrying her, with or without your approval." Vivian's face darkened, but Jake didn't give her a chance to respond. He turned to me, his eyes softening. "I'm so sorry about this, Pam. Let's go." As we drove away, I finally found my voice. "Jake," I said shakily, "there's something I need to tell you." I spilled everything, how Vivian was my boss, how she'd treated me at work, the incident that led to me meeting Jake in the first place. Jake listened silently, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When I finished, he pulled the car over and turned to face me. "Pamela," he said firmly, "I want you to know that this changes nothing. I love you, and I'm on your side, no matter what." His words were like a lifeline, and I clung to them desperately. We decided to move forward with our wedding plans, despite Vivian's disapproval. Jake and I found a small apartment together, and for a while, everything seemed okay. But at work, things were getting worse. Vivian's treatment of me had always been harsh, but now it was downright cruel. She'd humiliate me in meetings, mock my ideas in front of clients, and pile on impossible deadlines. Yet she never fired me. I was too valuable to the agency, and we both knew it. I'd come home every night exhausted and demoralized. Jake was always there, supportive and loving, but I could see the toll it was taking on him too. He'd confront his mother, begging her to treat me better, but it only seemed to make things worse. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I'd been working on a massive presentation for weeks, pouring every ounce of creativity and effort I had into it. As I stood in front of the management team, including Vivian, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this time I'd finally earn her approval. I was halfway through my pitch when Vivian's cold voice cut through the room. "Is this a joke, Pamela? This is what you've been working on for weeks? This is amateur work at best. I've seen interns produce better concepts than this drivel." The room fell silent. I could feel the pitying looks from my colleagues, but no one dared to speak up against Vivian. "I can revise it," I stammered, fighting back tears. Vivian waved her hand dismissively. "Don't bother. We'll have someone competent handle it from here. You're dismissed." I fled the conference room, my cheeks burning with humiliation. As soon as I reached my desk, I broke down in tears. It was too much. The constant criticism, the public humiliation, the stress of navigating this impossible situation with my mother-in-law. I couldn't take it anymore. That evening, I stumbled into our apartment, still sniffling. Jake took one look at me and pulled me into a tight hug. "That's it," he said firmly. "You can't keep doing this to yourself, Pam. You need to quit. Your mental health is more important than any job." The next day, I marched into Vivian's office and handed in my resignation. Her face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful little thing," she sputtered. After everything this agency has done for you? You're just going to abandon us? I stood my ground, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm sorry, but I can't continue working in this environment. My last day will be in 2 weeks. As I turned to leave, Vivian's voice stopped me cold. You think you can just walk away? I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. You'll regret this, Pamela. Mark my words. I threw myself into job hunting, confident that my skills and experience would land me a new position quickly. But as the weeks turned into months, I started to worry. Every promising lead seemed to fizzle out at the last minute. It was as if someone was sabotaging my efforts. Finally, after nearly 6 months of searching, I landed a job at a smaller agency. It wasn't as prestigious as my old position, but I was grateful for the opportunity. As I settled into my new role, I began to feel like things were finally looking up. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Just as I was starting to feel secure in my new job, my boss called me into his office. The moment I saw his face, I knew something was wrong. Pamela, he said, his voice heavy with regret, I'm afraid we have to let you go. Your work has been excellent. It's just, well, I can't say more, but my hands are tied. I'm sorry. As I packed up my desk in a daze, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Vivian. How does unemployment feel, dear? Perhaps now you'll learn your place. In that moment, I realized the true extent of my mother-in-law's vindictiveness. She hadn't just threatened to ruin my career, she was actually doing it. The following months were a blur of anxiety and frustration. No matter how many resumes I sent out or interviews I went to, I couldn't seem to land a job. I started picking up freelance gigs just to make ends meet, but it was barely enough to cover our bills. One afternoon, as I sat at our kitchen table, scrolling through job listings I knew would lead nowhere, my phone rang. It was Vivian. My finger hovered over the decline button, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? I answered cautiously. Pamela, dear, Vivian's saccharine voice oozed through the speaker. I just thought I'd check in on my favorite daughter-in-law. You know, Jake's birthday is coming up soon. I froze. In all the chaos of the past few months, I'd completely forgotten about Jake's birthday. I was thinking, Vivian continued, her voice suddenly warm. Why don't we surprise him? We could throw a party at my house. All his friends, family, it would be lovely, don't you think? It's time we put our differences aside, don't you think? Jake'd be so happy to see us getting along. As much as I wanted to refuse, I couldn't deny that Jake would love to see his mother and wife reconcile. And after everything he'd done for me, didn't he deserve a special birthday? All right, I said hesitantly. What did you have in mind? Vivian's voice brightened. Wonderful. Why don't you come over early on the day of the party? We can set everything up together. It'll be our little secret from Jake. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The day of the party arrived, and I made my way to Vivian's house, my stomach in knots. As I approached the front door, I could hear voices and laughter inside. As I stepped inside, I was shocked to see the house already full of guests. Vivian's phone was in her hand, apparently live streaming the event. Everyone, Vivian announced loudly, her eyes gleaming with malice. I'd like you all to greet our help for the evening. Before I could process what was happening, Vivian thrust a maid's uniform into my hands. Here you go, dear. The kitchen's that way. Chop chop, these guests won't serve themselves. I stood there, stunned, as the room fell silent. All eyes were on me, a mix of pity and second-hand embarrassment on their faces. What's the matter? Vivian sneered, her voice carrying clearly in the quiet room. This is what you're suited for, isn't it? A girl from the slums, parents who worked in a factory. You should be grateful I'm giving you the opportunity to serve your betters. The humiliation was overwhelming. Tears pricked at my eyes as I looked around the room, desperately searching for a friendly face, for someone to stand up to this cruelty. But everyone averted their gaze, unwilling to challenge Vivian. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I'd endured months of Vivian's torment, but this was a step too far. Without a word, I dropped the uniform at Vivian's feet and stormed out of the house, ignoring her calls behind me. I burst into our apartment, a mess of tears and anger. Jake was there, getting ready to head to his mother's house. He took one look at me, and his face fell. When I told him everything, Jake's face paled. He grabbed his phone and quickly pulled up his mother's social media page. There it was, the video of my humiliation, already gaining views and nasty comments. Jake's hand shook as he watched the video. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the love for his mother warring with his love for me. But as Vivian's cruel words rang out from the phone speakers, his jaw set in determination. He dialed Vivian's number, putting the phone on speaker. When she answered, her voice was sickly sweet. "Jake, darling, where are you? Everyone's waiting." "Save it, Mom," Jake cut her off. "I saw the video. How could you do that to Pamela?" There was a pause, then Vivian's voice turned cold. "Oh please, Jake. I was just putting her in her place. You know she's not good enough for you. I was doing you a favor." "No, Mom," Jake interrupted again. "You weren't doing me any favors. You were being cruel and manipulative. I love Pamela, and I won't let you treat her like this anymore. We're done. Don't contact us again." He hung up before Vivian could respond. The silence in our apartment was deafening. Jake turned to me, his eyes soft. "I'm so sorry, Pam. I had no idea she would go this far." I fell into his arms, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety. We spent the rest of the evening together, ignoring the constant ringing of Jake's phone. It was only the next morning that we realized the full extent of Vivian's retaliation. Jake's boss called him in for an emergency meeting. When he returned home a few hours later, his face was ashen. "They fired me," he said, his voice hollow. "Apparently, the CEO is a close friend of my mother's. She asked him to let me go." We spent the next few days trying to figure out our next move. With both of us unemployed and Vivian's influence seemingly everywhere, our options felt limited. "Maybe," Jake said hesitantly one evening, "maybe we should consider moving. Start fresh somewhere else, away from my mother's influence." The idea was tempting, but something nagged at me. "Jake," I said slowly, "why did your parents get divorced? You've never really talked about it." Jake's face clouded over. "I don't really know the details. Mom always said Dad abandoned us, that he didn't want anything to do with me. Dad tried to contact me a few times when I was younger, but Mom always intercepted the calls, told me he was just trying to manipulate us." An idea started to form in my mind. "Jake, what if we reached out to your dad? Maybe he could shed some light on all of this." We arranged to meet Jake's father, Robert, at a quiet cafe the next day. As we walked in, I spotted an older man who bore a striking resemblance to Jake. His face lit up when he saw us, and he stood to greet us with a warm, if slightly awkward, hug for Jake. "You must be Pamela," he said, turning to me with a kind smile. "It's wonderful to meet you." As we settled in with our coffees, Robert's face grew serious. "Jake, I can't tell you how happy I am to hear from you. But I have a feeling this isn't just a social call. What's going on?" Jake took a deep breath and began to explain everything: Vivian's treatment of me, her sabotage of our careers, the humiliating party incident. Robert listened intently, his face growing darker with each revelation. "Dad," Jake said hesitantly, "what really happened between you and Mom? Why did you divorce?" Robert's eyes clouded over with a mix of anger and sadness. "It's a long story, son. One I'm not proud of. You see, I used to work for my father's company. Your mother was in the accounting department. I thought we were happy, but..." He paused, taking a sip of his coffee before continuing. "One day, the police showed up at the office. Your grandfather was arrested for tax evasion. It all happened so fast, the company was in chaos, and suddenly your mother was taking charge, saying she'd keep things running. Jake and I exchanged a glance, both thinking the same thing. This sounded awfully familiar. Robert continued. I had my suspicions. Your mother had access to all the financial records, and she'd been pushing for more control in the company for months. I confronted her, asked her if she had anything to do with framing your grandfather. She didn't deny it, Robert continued. Instead, she threatened me. I had an affair. It was brief, but your mother found out. She had evidence, photos, messages, everything. Jake and I exchanged a shocked glance as Robert continued, his voice heavy with regret. The woman I had the affair with, her husband was an incredibly influential man in our industry. Your mother threatened to tell him everything unless I did exactly as she said. She gave me an ultimatum: divorce her, give her everything, and stay away from you, or she'd destroy me completely. I'm ashamed to say I took the coward's way out. I thought I was protecting you, Jake. As we sat there, processing everything we'd learned, a memory suddenly hit me. Jake, I said urgently, remember when I first started at the agency? I noticed some discrepancies in the books. I even took some pictures, thinking I might need to bring it up to Vivian later. Jake's eyes widened. Pam, are you saying? I nodded. I think your mother might be doing the same thing she did to your grandfather. If we can prove it. After our revealing conversation with Robert at the cafe, we all decided to return to our apartment. As soon as we entered, I made a beeline for my laptop. Jake and Robert watched intently as I booted it up, their anticipation palpable. Here they are, I said, pulling up the folder containing the incriminating photos. Just as I remembered. Jake and Robert leaned in, their eyes widening as they took in the images on the screen. Clear as day, there was evidence of double-entry bookkeeping, one set of books for the tax authorities, and another showing the true state of the company's finances. Jake's face set in determination. We need to take this to the authorities right away. Mom can't keep getting away with this. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. We contacted the tax authorities, presenting them with the evidence I had uncovered. They launched a full and in-depth audit of Vivian's agency. The investigation was thorough and relentless. The scale of tax evasion was staggering. Vivian was arrested and charged with multiple counts of tax evasion and fraud. The trial was swift, and the evidence overwhelming. In the end, the judge handed down a harsh sentence: Vivian would be spending several years in prison. In the aftermath of Vivian's conviction, the court decided to transfer ownership of the agency to Jake, as the closest family member not implicated in the crimes. It was a lot to take in, and we spent many late nights discussing what to do next. One evening, as we sat on our balcony watching the sunset, Jake turned to me with a smile. You know, Pam, I've been thinking. This agency needs a fresh start, a new direction. And I can't think of anyone better to lead it than you. I stared at him in shock. Me? But Jake, He cut me off gently. You're brilliant, Pam. You saw what was happening when no one else did. You have the skills, the vision, and the integrity to turn this agency into something we can be proud of. What do you say? Will you be our new executive director? Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. After everything we'd been through, after all the times Vivian had tried to tear me down, here I was, being offered the chance to lead the very agency she had used to torment me. The next few months were busy as we restructured the agency. We implemented strict ethical guidelines, rebuilt client relationships, and created a work environment based on respect and creativity. Slowly but surely, the agency's reputation began to recover. Through it all, Robert was there, offering support and advice. Over time, the awkwardness faded, and we found ourselves enjoying Sunday dinners together, rebuilding the family bonds that Vivian had tried so hard to destroy. I never asked to be born. Hell, my parents never asked for me either. The way my mom tells it, she was young and stupid, head over heels for some guy who couldn't keep it in his pants. Next thing you know, boom, baby on the way. That baby was me, Sheila, the mistake. Mom wanted to get rid of me, but both sets of grandparents found out and shut that down real quick. Back then, you didn't raise kids alone. So Mom and Dad got hitched, and I came along kicking and screaming 9 months later. Dad never let me forget how I'd ruined his life. "There goes my youth," he'd mutter every time he looked at me. To him, I wasn't a daughter, I was a ball and chain, dragging him down from the life he thought he deserved. For 10 years, it was just the three of us in that little house. Me, tiptoeing around, trying not to piss off Dad. Mom, cooking and cleaning like her life depended on it. And Dad, coming home from work with a scowl that only deepened when he saw me. Then came the miracle, my little sister. Sarah, the golden child. The one they actually wanted. And me? I was shoved even further into the background. "Sheila, watch your sister. Sheila, be quiet. Sarah's sleeping. Sheila, why can't you be more like Sarah?" It was Sarah this, Sarah that. She got new clothes, I got hand-me-downs. She got praise, I got scolded. She got love, I got used to disappointment. By the time I was 10, I was doing most of the housework. Scrubbing toilets, mopping floors, dusting shelves, you name it, I did it. Not that I got any thanks for it. It was just expected. But there was one chore I didn't mind, cooking. Something about mixing ingredients, creating flavors, it felt like magic. I remember the first time I made my special lasagna for a family gathering. Aunt Linda took a bite and her eyes lit up. "Mary, this is incredible. When did you become such a master chef?" Mom just smiled and nodded, soaking up the praise. I stood in the corner, invisible as always. "Actually, I made it," I said, trying to make my voice heard. Aunt Linda laughed, like I'd just told a joke. "Sheila likes to help in the kitchen sometimes," Mom cut in smoothly, still basking in the compliments. "Isn't that right, dear?" I shut my mouth, knowing it was pointless. No one ever believed me anyway. Growing up, the kitchen became my sanctuary. While Sarah got showered with attention and gifts, I found solace in pots and pans. By the time I hit high school, I could whip up a mean pot roast that even Dad couldn't complain about. "Not bad," he'd grunt, shoveling food into his mouth. Coming from him, that was high praise. But it wasn't just about feeding my family. I had bigger dreams. Every night, I'd close my eyes and picture it, my own restaurant, bustling with happy customers, all of them savoring my creations. One night at dinner, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "I want to open a restaurant someday," I blurted out. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Sarah snickered. "You? A restaurant?" Mom looked concerned, like I'd just announced I wanted to be an astronaut. Dad didn't even look up from his plate. "Restaurants fail all the time. You'd be broke in a month." "But I'm good at cooking," I protested. "Everyone likes my food." "Everyone likes free food," Dad scoffed. "Doesn't mean they'd pay for it." Sarah piped up, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Maybe you could work at McDonald's, Sheila. I hear they're always hiring." When it came time for college, I set my sights on the best culinary school I could find. To my shock, Dad agreed to pay for it. "This is your inheritance," he said gruffly. "Don't expect anything else. The house, the savings, that's all going to Sarah." I should have been hurt, but honestly, I was too excited about culinary school to care. This was my chance to prove myself, to learn from real chefs and hone my skills. College was a whirlwind of chopping, sautéing, and baking. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. My classmates actually appreciated my cooking, and my instructors praised my creativity. But reality came crashing back when I graduated. With no money for my own place, I had to move back home. The contrast between my college life and my family's indifference was stark. "So, you're a chef now?" Sarah smirked over dinner. "Does that mean you'll be doing all the cooking from now on?" Mom jumped in before I could respond. "That's a wonderful idea. Sheila can cook, and you can focus on your studies, dear." And just like that, I was back to being the family maid. But this time, with a culinary degree gathering dust on my shelf. I managed to land a job as an assistant chef at a local restaurant. The pay was lousy, but it was a foot in the door. Every night, I'd come home exhausted, only to face a mountain of dishes and laundry. "This is your rent," Mom would say, handing me a list of chores. "You're not a child anymore. You need to contribute." But I didn't let it break me. Every spare moment, I was planning, dreaming, scheming. I knew that someday, somehow, I'd have my own restaurant. And when that day came, I'd show them all what Sheila was really capable of. 2 years crawled by, each day a carbon copy of the last. I cooked, I cleaned, I worked my ass off at the restaurant, and I watched as Sarah continued to be showered with everything I'd ever wanted. The day Sarah started high school, Dad came home with a shit-eating grin on his face. "Sarah, honey," he called out. "Come see what I got you." We all trooped outside. There, sitting in our driveway like some kind of shiny insult, was a brand new car. A fucking car. "But I can't even drive yet," Sarah said, her eyes wide. Dad laughed, tossing her the keys. "You will soon enough. My girl deserves the best, right from the start." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. When I turned 16, I got a second-hand bike. And even that was only because I needed it to get to my part-time job. It didn't stop there. Every week, there was something new for precious Sarah. The latest iPhone, a MacBook Pro, designer clothes. They even renovated her bedroom, turning it into something that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. Meanwhile, I was still in my old room. The same faded wallpaper, the same creaky bed I'd had since I was 10. But hey, at least the spiders kept me company, right? I started thinking about moving out. Maybe I could find a roommate, split the rent on some tiny apartment. Anything would be better than this constant reminder of how little I mattered. But then came Christmas. I'd been saving up, determined to get everyone nice gifts for once. Show them I wasn't the failure they thought I was. I ended up buying lottery tickets for everyone, not the cheap scratch-offs, but tickets for the big jackpot. Christmas morning came, and I handed out the envelopes, trying not to look too eager. Mom opened hers first. Her face fell. "Oh, lottery tickets." Dad snorted. "What is this, a gas station gift?" Sarah didn't even bother opening hers. She just rolled her eyes. "Gee, thanks Sheila, real thoughtful." "Well," Mom said, her voice sickly sweet, "I guess since Sheila didn't really get us anything, she won't be expecting any gifts either. That seems fair, doesn't it?" I felt a lump forming in my throat. Without a word, I snatched the lottery tickets from Dad's hand. "You know what? I'll take them. Merry bloody Christmas." I stormed out, ignoring their shocked faces. Screw their family dinner. I texted my coworker, Jen. "Hey, you still at the restaurant? Mind some company?" An hour later, I was sitting at the bar of the closed restaurant, nursing a glass of cheap champagne with Jen. As the night wore on, Jen and I traded stories about horrible families and crushed dreams. It wasn't exactly a Hallmark Christmas, but at least I felt less alone. A few days later, I was at work as usual. During the break, I reached for my phone. There was a missed call from an unknown number. "Probably just another scam," I muttered, tossing the phone aside. But then it rang again. Same number. Curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. "Hello, is this Sheila Thompson?" a cheery voice asked. "Yeah, who's this?" "This is Linda from the State Lottery Commission. I'm calling to inform you that you're holding a winning ticket." I almost dropped the phone. "What? Are you serious?" "Absolutely. One of your tickets matched all the numbers in Christmas drawing. After taxes, your winnings come to $690,000. The world spun around me. In a daze, I headed home. My mind was racing. This was it. My chance to finally open my own restaurant. To show everyone what I could do. I burst through the front door, unable to contain my excitement. You won't believe what happened. They were all sitting at the kitchen table, looking at me like I'd grown a second head. I won the lottery, I blurted out. One of the tickets, the one I was going to give Mom, it won. $690,000 after taxes. For a moment, there was stunned silence. Then Sarah's shrill voice cut through the air. That money belongs to us, she screeched. You bought those tickets as gifts for Mom and Dad. Anything that belongs to them belongs to me. I felt like I'd been slapped. What? No, they gave the tickets back to me. They're mine. Mom and Dad exchanged a look. Sheila, Dad said slowly, be reasonable. You live under our roof. You owe us. Now, hand over that ticket. We'll take care of everything. I took a step back, my hand instinctively going to my pocket where the ticket was. No, I said, surprising even myself with how steady my voice was. This is my ticket, my win. I'm going to use it to open my own restaurant. Dad's face turned an alarming shade of red. Now you listen here, young lady. No, you listen. I shouted, years of pent-up frustration pouring out. I've spent my whole life being treated like a second-class citizen in this family. Well, not anymore. This is my chance, and I'm taking it. If that's how you feel, Mom said, her voice ice-cold, then you can get out of this house. Now. I stared at them, these people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. In that moment, I saw them clearly for the first time. Fine, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm gone. I stormed up to my room, threw some clothes and essentials into a bag, and walked out. They watched me go, probably thinking I'd come crawling back in a day or two. They couldn't have been more wrong. My first stop was the lottery office, to claim my winnings. Then, I headed straight to a real estate agent. I need an apartment, I told the surprised agent. Something available immediately. By that evening, I was sitting in my very own place. It wasn't much, a small one-bedroom in a decent part of town, but it was mine. All mine. As I sat on the floor, I hadn't had time to buy furniture yet, eating takeout and scrolling through restaurant equipment catalogs on my phone, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, hope. First things first, I needed a solid business plan. I spent weeks hunched over my laptop, researching, crunching numbers, and planning every detail. After what felt like a million revisions, I finally had a plan I was proud of. Next step, location. I scoured the city, looking for the perfect spot. Finally, I found it, a small, run-down space that had been empty for years. The landlord practically laughed when I said I wanted to turn it into a restaurant. Good luck with that, sweetheart, he chuckled, handing me the keys. I spent the next 3 months turning that dump into my dream. I hired contractors, picked out every fixture, and personally scrubbed every inch of the place. It was backbreaking work, but every blister and bruise felt like a badge of honor. Finally, opening day arrived. I stood in the kitchen, my kitchen, surrounded by the staff I'd handpicked and trained myself. The first order came in, and I felt a rush of adrenaline. Let's do this, I said, tying on my apron. The first few months were a whirlwind. I worked 18-hour days, cooking, managing, and doing whatever needed to be done. Slowly but surely, word started to spread. People loved my food, not just the taste, but the love and creativity I poured into every dish. I introduced a loyalty program for regular customers, giving them special discounts and first dibs on new menu items. It was a hit. Soon, I had a core group of regulars who came in so often, they felt like family. But I didn't stop there. I set up a delivery service, partnering with local couriers to bring my food right to people's homes. It was a gamble, quality control was a nightmare at first, but it paid off. Social media became my new best friend. I posted daily specials, behind-the-scenes kitchen videos, and engaged with customers online. My follower count grew, and with it, my customer base. 2 years in, I was turning a profit. It wasn't huge, but it was something. I started looking for a second location. Opening the second restaurant was easier in some ways. I knew what I was doing now, but harder in others. Suddenly, I couldn't be everywhere at once. I had to learn to delegate, to trust my staff, to maintain my standards when I wasn't there. But we made it work. And 3 years after that, I opened my third location. Before I knew it, I was the owner of a successful restaurant chain. Me, Sheila Thompson, the girl who was never supposed to amount to anything. I won't lie, it wasn't easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I was in over my head. Days when I wanted to throw in the towel and admit defeat. But every time I walked into one of my restaurants, saw the happy customers, smelled the delicious food, I knew it was all worth it. It was just another Tuesday. I was in my office, going over the books for my newest restaurant, when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and froze. It was a number I hadn't seen in years, home. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. But curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" I answered, my voice cautious. "Sheila?" It was Mom. "Look, I know we've had our differences, but we need your help. It's about Sarah." Of course it was always about Sarah. "What about her?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Dad's voice came on the line. "She's in trouble, Sheila, she lost her job. They're accusing her of theft, and now no one will hire her. We were hoping you might have a position for her at one of your restaurants." I almost laughed. After everything they'd put me through, they had the nerve to ask for a favor? But then I thought about Sarah. Despite everything, she was still my sister. "Let me talk to her," I said. Sarah came on the line, her voice small and scared. "Sheila? I'm sorry for everything. I really need help." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll give you a job. But listen up, there's no special treatment. You screw up, you're out. Got it?" "Yes. Thank you, Sarah gushed. The next morning, Sarah showed up right on time, looking nervous but determined. I put her to work as an administrator, starting her with basic tasks and slowly increasing her responsibilities. To my surprise, she seemed to take it seriously. She was attentive during training, asked good questions, and didn't complain about the work. One night, as we were closing up, Sarah broke down. "I need to tell you the truth," she sobbed. "I didn't steal anything from my last job. My boss, he tried to force himself on me. When I refused, he fired me and spread rumors that I was a thief." I felt a surge of protective anger. "Why didn't you report him? Who would believe me over him?" Sarah wiped her eyes. "I was so scared, Sheila. I didn't know what to do." "I believe you," I said, pulling her into a hug. "And I'm going to help you, okay? We'll figure this out together." Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into teaching Sarah everything I knew about running a restaurant. She soaked it all up like a sponge, eager to learn and prove herself. As I watched her confidently handle a rush of customers, I felt a mix of pride and unease. Sarah was proving to be a quick study and a hard worker. But a nagging voice in the back of my head warned me not to let my guard down completely. At first, everything seemed perfect. Sarah threw herself into her work with an enthusiasm I'd never seen from her before. She was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, taking on extra shifts and volunteering for the toughest tasks. But then, whispers started reaching my ears. At first, I dismissed them as petty workplace gossip. But as the days went by, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Boss, Marco, my head chef, pulled me aside one day. "I think you need to know something. Your sister, she's been saying things, stirring up trouble." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What kind of things?" Marco looked uncomfortable. "She's been telling people that we're underpaid, that you're hoarding all the profits for yourself. She's even suggested we should go on strike." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's ridiculous. You all know how tight our margins are. I've always been transparent about the finances. We know, boss, Marco assured me. None of us are buying it. But, there's more. He went on to tell me how Sarah had been claiming that the restaurant rightfully belonged to her, that I had somehow cheated her out of her share of the family money. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. After everything we'd been through, after I'd given her a second chance, this is how she repaid me? I confronted Sarah that evening, my hands shaking with anger and disappointment. What the hell do you think you're doing? I demanded. Sarah's face was a mask of innocence. What are you talking about, sis? I laid out everything I'd heard. To my shock, Sarah just shrugged. Oh, that, she said casually. I was just testing the staff's loyalty. You know, making sure they wouldn't turn on you. Looks like they passed with flying colors. I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. But something in her eyes, a glint of something cold and calculating, made me hesitate. Before I could press her further, we were interrupted by a frantic knock on my office door. It was Jenna, my assistant manager, looking pale and scared. Sheila, we've got a problem, she said. There's a big shortage in the cash register. Over $5,000 missing. We spent the next few hours going over the books, checking and rechecking the numbers. There was no mistake. A significant amount of cash had vanished. Only 3 people had access to that register, Jenna, Marco, and Sarah. I'd known Jenna and Marco for years. They'd been with me from the start, through all the ups and downs. I trusted them with my life. As if reading my thoughts, Sarah sidled up to me. You know, she said in a low voice, I've noticed Jenna staying late a lot lately. And she did just buy that fancy new car. As I watched her walk away, I knew I had a decision to make. I couldn't ignore this. Too much was at stake, my business, my reputation, the livelihoods of all my loyal employees. Late one night, after everyone had gone home, I installed hidden cameras around the cash registers. It felt wrong, like I was betraying my staff's trust. But I had no choice. For days, I watched hours of mundane footage, my eyes burning from staring at the screen. And then, on the 4th night, I saw it. Sarah, moving quickly and furtively, opened the register. Her hands darted in and out, stuffing wads of cash into her pockets. My heart sank. I didn't confront her, I couldn't. Instead, I called the police. The next day, as Sarah was finishing her shift, 2 officers walked in. The look on her face when she saw them, shock, then anger, told me everything I needed to know. She thrashed around, knocking over tables and sending dishes crashing to the floor. I deserve this money. I should be rich, not you. You stole my life. As the police led her away, I felt nothing. No sadness, no regret. Just a hollow emptiness where my love for my sister used to be. The next day, my parents stormed into the restaurant. Mom was crying, Dad's face was beet red with anger. How dare you? Dad roared. Your own sister, drop the charges now. I stood my ground. No, she stole from me. She needs to face the consequences. I pulled out my phone, showing them the footage of Sarah stealing. Look, I said. This is what your precious Sarah did. She's a thief. They watched, their faces pale. But instead of understanding, their expressions hardened. You set her up, Dad accused. You've always been jealous of her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jealous? Are you kidding me? You gave me scraps and expected me to be grateful. Well, I'm done. Sarah made her choices. Now she has to live with them. They ranted and raved, alternating between threats and pleas. But I stood firm. Get out, I finally said. Get out of my restaurant, get out of my life. If you don't leave now, I'm calling the police. They left, but not before Dad spat out. You'll regret this, Sheila. Mark my words. The trial was a nightmare. Sarah's tearful performance on the stand almost had me doubting myself. But then came the surprise witness, her former boss. He testified about Sarah's behavior at her last job. How she'd aggressively pursued him, threatening to cry sexual harassment when he rejected her advances. How she'd stolen money from the company in retaliation. In the end, the jury found her guilty. As they led her away, she looked at me one last time. There was no remorse in her eyes, only cold hatred. I haven't spoken to my family since that day. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I made the right choice. But then I look around at what I've built, at the life I've made for myself, and I know I did. As I stand in the kitchen of my newest restaurant, watching my staff prepare for the dinner rush, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. This is my family now. This is my home. And nobody, not Sarah, not my parents, not anyone, can take that away from me. I'm Catherine, and I grew up in what you might call a big family. Dad was hell-bent on having a son. So, they kept trying, over and over. Mom got pregnant again and again until the doctors finally put their foot down. No more, they said. It's too risky. That's when Mom and Dad finally threw in the towel on their dream of a boy. Being the oldest, I got stuck with a lot of the grunt work. Don't get me wrong, I loved my sisters, but sometimes it felt like I was more of a parent than a sibling. I had to grow up fast, you know? While other kids were out playing, I was changing diapers, doing laundry, and helping Mom with everything around the house. Things really changed when my youngest sister was born. It was like Mom and Dad suddenly remembered they were parents. They showered her with attention, bought her the best toys, signed her up for every club and activity under the sun. Whatever she wanted, she got. One day, when I was about 14, I overheard Mom talking on the phone. I just don't have time for the older girls anymore, she said. Catherine's handling it, though. She's such a good helper. Helper, that's what I was reduced to. Not a daughter, not even a sister. Just a helper. But I had a secret that kept me going. My grandmother, Mom's mother. They'd had some big falling out years ago and hadn't spoken since. But I'd managed to find her number, and we'd been talking in secret. As I got older, I started to dream about college. I wanted more for myself than just being the family babysitter. But when I graduated high school, Mom and Dad dropped a bombshell on me. There's no money for your education, Catherine, Dad said, not even looking me in the eye. You need to get a job and help out financially. We need to save for your sister's education. That night, I cried myself to sleep, feeling trapped and hopeless. But then I remembered my secret weapon, Grandma. The next day, I called her, spilling out everything between sobs. Don't you worry, sweetheart, she said, her voice firm and determined. I'll pay for your college. You deserve a chance at a better life. And just like that, a whole new world opened up for me. I applied to colleges in other cities, dreaming of a fresh start. When I got accepted to study economics, I was over the moon. But my parents, they didn't see it that way. You're abandoning your family, Mom accused, her eyes cold. After everything we've done for you. Done for me? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've been raising your kids since I was a kid myself. Get out, Dad said, his voice low and angry. If you're going, then go. But don't expect any support from us. I packed my bags that night, my sisters watching with tear-filled eyes. Don't go, Kathy, they pleaded. I have to, I told them, hugging each one tight. But I'll always be here for you. Always. As I walked out the door, I heard Dad's voice behind me. Girls, you are not to have any contact with Catherine. Do you understand? As I settled into college life, I felt like I could finally breathe. The campus was bustling with energy, and for once, I didn't have to worry about anyone but myself. But even as I embraced this new chapter, I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. I missed my sisters fiercely. Despite my parents' ban, I couldn't bear the thought of completely cutting ties with them. One night, I got a call from an unknown number. My heart raced as I answered. Kathy? It was my second youngest sister's voice, barely above a whisper. Emily? Is that you? I could hardly contain my excitement. Yeah, it's me. I'm using my friend's phone. Mom and Dad can't know. We talked for hours that night, catching up on everything. Emily told me how things had changed at home, how our parents were even stricter now, and how much they all missed me. Even Sarah? I asked, referring to our youngest sister. There was a pause on the other end. Sarah, she's different, Kathy. She told Mom and Dad about us calling you. They took our phones away, but don't worry, we'll find ways to keep in touch. We love you, Kathy. Those secret calls became my lifeline. My sisters, except for Sarah, would use their friends' phones to reach out to me. We'd talk about their lives, their dreams, and I'd share stories about college. It wasn't the same as being there, but it was something. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my studies. Economics fascinated me, and I found myself excelling in my classes. My professors took notice, and soon I was being recommended for internships and special projects. As my college years flew by, I couldn't help but think about my family back home. I'd hear snippets from my sisters about how Sarah was still the golden child, how she was in all these clubs and always the center of attention. Mom and Dad are talking about sending her to some fancy private school, my sister Jessica told me during one of our secret calls. What about you and Emily? I asked, already knowing the answer. Oh, you know, Jessica said, trying to sound nonchalant. We'll probably just go to the local high school. It's fine, really. But I knew it wasn't fine. I knew how it felt to be overlooked, to be treated like you didn't matter as much. It broke my heart that my sisters were going through the same thing. As graduation approached, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. I'd done well in college, thanks in no small part to my grandmother's support. She'd been my rock through it all, always there with a kind word or a bit of advice when I needed it. I'm so proud of you, Catherine, she told me over the phone one night. You've overcome so much. Your grandfather would have been proud too. The day of my graduation, I scanned the crowd, hoping against hope that maybe, just maybe, my parents and sisters would be there. But they weren't. The only familiar face in the sea of people was my grandmother's, beaming with pride. Fresh out of college, I hit the ground running. The job was challenging, but I thrived on it. Months flew by, and I settled into a routine. Work, gym, home, repeat. It wasn't exciting, but it was mine. I was building my own life, on my own terms. Then came the company's annual corporate party. I almost didn't go, large gatherings still made me a bit uncomfortable. But my colleague, Jen, insisted. Come on, Catherine, she pleaded. It'll be fun. Plus, I heard some bigwigs from our partner companies will be there. Great networking opportunity. The party was in full swing when I arrived. Soft jazz played in the background as people mingled, drinks in hand. I was about to make a beeline for the punch bowl when I quite literally bumped into someone. Oh, I'm so sorry, I stammered, looking up to see a pair of kind brown eyes. No harm done, the man said with a warm smile. I'm Michael, by the way. I don't think we've met. Catherine, I replied, shaking his hand. I'm from the economics department. We got to talking, and I learned that Michael was an executive from one of our partner companies. He was smart, funny, and easy to talk to. Before I knew it, hours had passed. As the party wound down, Michael asked for my number. I'd love to continue this conversation over coffee sometime, he said. I hesitated for a moment, then thought, why not? I'd spent so much of my life taking care of others. Maybe it was time to let someone take care of me for a change. Our first date turned into a second, then a third. Before I knew it, we were officially a couple. Michael was everything I'd never known I wanted, kind, supportive, and he actually listened when I talked. A year later, he proposed to me. As we started planning the wedding, I faced a dilemma. Should I invite my family? Despite everything, they were still my parents, my sisters. After much thought, I sent the invitations. To my parents, to all my sisters, even Sarah. I also sent one to my grandmother, the one person who had always been there for me. Weeks passed, and I heard nothing from my parents or sisters. Then, one day, I got a call from Emily. "Kathy," she said, her voice trembling. "We got your invitation. Mom and Dad, they won't let us come. They won't even let us send you a card. I'm so sorry." The day of the wedding arrived. As I stood in front of the mirror in my white dress, I felt a mix of joy and sadness. My grandmother walked in, her eyes shining with tears. "Oh, Catherine," she said, hugging me tight. "You look beautiful. I'm so proud of you." As I walked down the aisle towards Michael, I saw the faces of our friends, his family, and my grandmother. My family wasn't there, but I realized something important: family isn't always about blood. It's about love, support, and acceptance. The years after our wedding flew by in a whirlwind of love, laughter, and shared dreams. Michael and I settled into our life together, both of us continuing to work and build our careers. We traveled, we explored new hobbies together, and we talked endlessly about our future. And then we decided to start trying for a baby. Months passed, then a year, then 2. Nothing happened. We went through all the tests, tried every recommendation, but still, no baby. It was heartbreaking. The next few years were a roller coaster of hope and disappointment. We went through treatment after treatment, each failure hitting us harder than the last. One day, after another failed round of IVF, I broke down. "Maybe we're not meant to be parents," I sobbed into Michael's chest. He held me tight, stroking my hair. "Hey, look at me," he said gently. "We're going to be parents. Maybe not in the way we originally thought, but we will be. What do you think about adoption? A child is a child, Catherine. All they need is love, and we've got plenty of that." His words warmed my heart, and I felt a glimmer of hope. "Okay," I said, wiping my tears. "Let's do it. Let's adopt." The adoption process was long and often frustrating. There were so many forms to fill out, interviews to go through, home studies to pass. But we persevered, driven by our desire to give a child a loving home. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we got the call. The day we met Lily was one I'll never forget. She was tiny, with big brown eyes and skin darker than ours. She looked scared and confused, clinging to her social worker's hand. I knelt down to her level. "Hi, Lily," I said softly. "I'm Catherine, and this is Michael. We've been waiting a long time to meet you." She looked at us warily, then back at her social worker, who nodded encouragingly. Slowly, Lily reached out and took my hand. In that moment, I fell in love. This was our daughter. I didn't care that she didn't look like us or share our DNA. She was ours, and we were hers. When Lily was about 5, we sat her down and explained, in simple terms, how she came to be our daughter. We showed her pictures from the day we met her, told her how much we'd wanted her, how we'd fallen in love with her the moment we saw her. Lily listened intently, her brow furrowed in concentration. When we finished, she was quiet for a moment. "So, you picked me?" she asked finally. I smiled, tears in my eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. Out of all the children in the world, we picked you. And we'd pick you again every single time." She beamed at us, then threw her arms around us both. "I love you, Mommy and Daddy," she said. As I held my daughter close, I thought about my own childhood. The pain, the neglect, the feeling of never being good enough. I vowed then and there that Lily would never feel that way. She would always know how loved and wanted she was. Life has a funny way of bringing you full circle. One day, Michael said his company had opened a branch in my hometown. And he will become the head of this branch. The move was chaotic, as moves tend to be. But as we settled into our new home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to reach out to my sisters. My parents had passed away a few years back. I hadn't gone to the funeral. But my sisters, maybe it was time to mend those fences. I reached out to Jessica and Emily first. They were cautious at first, but eager to reconnect. We met for coffee, and it was like no time had passed at all. They cooed over pictures of Lily, told me about their own families, their kids. "We've missed you so much, Kathy," Emily said, squeezing my hand. "We're so glad you're back." For a while, everything was perfect. We started having family gatherings, holiday celebrations. Lily was thrilled to have cousins to play with, and I loved seeing her surrounded by family. But then there was Sarah, our youngest sister. From the moment we reconnected, I could tell she hadn't changed much. She was still the spoiled, entitled girl she'd always been, now grown into a woman who thought the world revolved around her and her family. At our first big family gathering, Sarah showed up with her husband and their son, Tommy. From the moment they arrived, it was clear that Sarah saw this as a competition rather than a reunion. "Tommy, show your aunties how well you can sing," she'd say, pushing her son forward. "He's taking lessons, you know. The teacher says he's a prodigy." As the party went on, I noticed Lily hanging back, looking uncomfortable. She approached Tommy, holding out a piece of candy. "Want to share?" she asked shyly. Before Tommy could respond, Sarah swooped in. "Tommy, don't take that," she screeched. "Throw it away. Her hands are dirty." I was across the room in an instant. "Sarah, what are you talking about? Lily's hands are clean." But Sarah just glared at me, then at Lily. "Well, you never know with her kind," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Come on, Tommy. Let's go play with your real cousins." I stood there, shocked and hurt. Did she really just say that? About my daughter? From that moment on, things were tense. Sarah made it clear at every gathering that she didn't consider Lily part of the family. She'd loudly proclaim that Tommy couldn't play with Lily because who knows what diseases she might have, or we don't know her genetic background. Each time, I'd confront her, defend my daughter. But the damage was being done. I could see Lily withdrawing, becoming quieter at these family events. One day, I made a decision. I wouldn't force Lily to attend these gatherings anymore. I started declining invitations, making excuses. Jessica and Emily understood, even though they were disappointed. As the dust settled from our move and the family drama that ensued, I found solace in my visits to Grandma. She had been my rock through everything, and now, in her twilight years, I wanted to be there for her as much as she had been for me. Every weekend, Lily and I would make the short drive to Grandma's house. She would be waiting on the porch, her face lighting up as soon as she saw us. "There's my girls," she'd call out, arms outstretched. Lily would race up the steps, throwing herself into Grandma's embrace. "Grandma, I missed you." Watching them together always warmed my heart. Grandma doted on Lily, showering her with love and attention. She never once treated Lily differently because she was adopted. To Grandma, Lily was family, plain and simple. As the months passed, Grandma's health began to decline. Our visits became less about long talks and more about quiet companionship. Lily would read to her, or show her drawings she'd made. Even in her weakened state, Grandma's love for us shone through. The day Grandma passed was one of the hardest of my life. We'd been there with her at the end, holding her hand as she slipped away peacefully. Lily, wise beyond her years, had climbed onto the bed and curled up next to her great-grandmother. "It's okay, Grandma," she'd whispered. "You can rest now. We love you." In the days that followed, as we dealt with our grief and the logistics that come with losing a loved one, we received some unexpected news. Grandma's lawyer called, asking us to come to his office. "Your grandmother left a will," he explained when we arrived. "And, well, you might want to sit down for this." What he told us next left me speechless. Grandma had left everything to me and Lily. The house, several cars, and over $1 million. "Your grandfather was quite successful," the lawyer explained. "And your grandmother was an astute investor. She had intended to leave it all to your mother, despite their estrangement. But when your mother passed? I nodded, understanding. Grandma had changed her will, leaving everything to us. When word got out about the inheritance, my phone started ringing off the hook. Jessica and Emily called to congratulate me, saying I deserved it. But then came the call I'd been dreading. Sarah. Catherine, she said, her voice sickly sweet. I heard about Grandma's will. So, when are you sharing the inheritance with the rest of us? I felt a flash of anger. After everything she'd said and done, how dare she? I'm not, I said firmly. The inheritance is for me and Lily. That's what Grandma wanted. But that's not fair, Sarah screeched. I'm family too. I deserve. I cut her off. No, Sarah, you don't. Goodbye. And I hung up. As I put down the phone, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For so long, I'd tried to please everyone, to be the perfect daughter and sister. But now, I realized it was time to put my own family first. It was Jessica's birthday, and despite my reservations, I decided it was time to make an appearance at a family gathering. When we arrived, the party was in full swing. Jessica's backyard was filled with laughter and chatter. Kids ran around playing tag while adults mingled, drinks in hand. For a moment, it felt like old times. Jessica embraced me warmly. I'm so glad you came, Kathy, she whispered. I could see the genuine happiness in her eyes. For the first hour or so, everything was fine. Lily joined her cousins on the lawn, their laughter floating across the yard. I relaxed a bit, thinking maybe this wasn't such a bad idea after all. But then I saw Sarah. She was moving from child to child, whispering in their ears. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I saw the way the kids' eyes widened, the way they glanced at Lily. Suddenly, Lily was standing alone. The other children had moved away, forming their own group, pointedly excluding her. I watched as my daughter's face crumpled in confusion and hurt. Before I could react, Lily ran to me, tears streaming down her face. Mommy, she sobbed, they don't want to play with me anymore. They said I'm sick and not really family. Rage boiled up inside me. I hugged Lily close, then marched over to Sarah, who was watching the scene with a smug smile. What the hell do you think you're doing? I demanded, my voice low and dangerous. Sarah's smile didn't falter. Oh, calm down, Catherine. I'm just telling the children the truth. They deserve to know about her condition. Condition? I spat. The only person with a condition here is you, Sarah. Your behavior is disgusting. By now, we'd drawn a crowd. The other adults were watching, wide-eyed, as the confrontation unfolded. Sarah's face twisted into an ugly sneer. My behavior? That's rich coming from you, Catherine. You, who shamelessly took Grandma's money, robbing the rest of us of our rightful inheritance. And for what? To give money to that girl who isn't even really part of this family? Gasps echoed around us. How dare you, I seethed. Lily is my daughter. She is as much a part of this family as anyone else. Sarah laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. Family? She's not even related to us. She's just some random kid you picked up, probably born to drug addicts or criminals. She has no right to our family's legacy. I was shaking with fury now. You don't know anything about Lily or her birth parents. And it doesn't matter. She is my daughter, and I love her more than anything in this world. Love? Sarah sneered. Is that what you call it when you use a child to steal from your own family? Face it, Catherine. You're nothing but a thief, using that girl to get Grandma's money. Well, we won't stand for it anymore. It's time you shared what rightfully belongs to all of us. I was about to respond when Jessica stepped forward, her face set in determination. That's enough, Sarah, she said firmly. You have no right to speak to Catherine like that, or to treat Lily this way. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. What, you're taking her side? Emily joined Jessica, standing beside me. We both are. Catherine has always been there for us, even when our own parents weren't. She raised us, Sarah. She deserves every penny of that inheritance." I felt a lump form in my throat, touched by my sister's support. Sarah's face contorted with rage. "You traitors! How dare you? You're betraying the memory of our parents." Emily scoffed. "Our parents? The same parents who neglected us and showered you with attention? The same parents who cut Catherine off for daring to want an education?" Jessica nodded. "And let's not forget, Sarah, how you took Mom and Dad's house and all their savings after they died. You didn't share a cent of that with any of us." I gasped, this information new to me. "What? Is that true, Sarah?" Sarah's face paled, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "It's true," Emily confirmed. "She got everything when Mom and Dad passed, and she never once offered to share." A wave of disappointment and anger washed over me. All this time, Sarah had been accusing me of theft when she'd done the very same thing. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady and firm. "I think it's time for you to leave." "You can't make me," she started, but Jessica cut her off. "Yes, she can. This is my house, and I want you to go. We're all tired of your tantrums and your cruelty. Until you can treat Catherine and Lily with respect, you're not welcome here." Sarah looked around, realizing she was outnumbered. With a final glare, she grabbed her son's hand and stormed off. As the gate slammed behind her, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I turned to my sisters, tears in my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. Later that night, I made a decision. The next day, I called my sisters and told them my plan. Despite their protests that I didn't need to do this, I insisted. I gave them the house and the cars, keeping the $1 million for our family. With the inheritance settled, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I transferred half of the money to a trust fund for Lily's future, ensuring she would always be taken care of. The other half, Michael and I decided to use for our family. We'd take that trip to Disney World that Lily had been dreaming of. We'd renovate our home, creating the perfect space for our little family. And maybe, just maybe, we'd look into adopting another child, giving Lily the sibling she'd always wanted.